as it stands today on what is the final day of the WNBA season, my top 10 is as follows. Asia and Napheesa Collier are still 1 and 2. I think that is a no-brainer. I do think that there is potential maybe if their two teams respectively match up in the finals, whoever wins, like if Napheesa and the Lynx win the chip this year over Asia and the Lynx, I think there's a or Asia and the Aces, I think there's a possibility that Napheesa could jump to number 1, but I still think it's Asia and Napheesa Collier. Number 3, it's Alyssa Thomas, and it has to be. This is the second year over the last 3 years that she has been an MVP candidate and will likely, unfortunately, just due to the greatness of Asia Wilson and another basketball player, not win the MVP award. To steal words that Martin says all the time about Alyssa Thomas, if you don't think Alyssa Thomas is a top 10 player because her box score numbers or averages aren't gaudy, I don't know what to tell you. Because when you watch
it's mainly her points. I mean, her box
her points more
gaudy.
specifically. But when you want to compare her points to some of these other players on the list, like her impact is undeniable on both sides of the ball as well. When you watch her play basketball, it is absolutely undeniable. So this is where things got interesting, because I do not think that Jonquel or Brianna Stewart necessarily had a better season in totality than any of the players beneath them on my list. However, I do think that for me personally, the gap between the 5 best players in the WNBA, in my opinion, and the next group of 5 was so large, or large enough in my mind, where despite how good Alicia Gray, Nneka, Paige, and Ryan Howard were, who are the 4 new additions to my list, it was just hard for me to justify putting them ahead of Jonquel and Brianna Stewart, because even though Jonquel and Brianna Stewart did miss time this season, when they played well. They played true to form, right? Yeah. Jonquel Jones started the season off as an MVP candidate, and they played in enough games this season where I felt, and they played well in those games where I felt like they should still justifiably be number 4 and number 5. The switch, though, is Brianna Stewart went from being 3rd to being 5th, because I think it is undeniable at this point that Jonquel Jones is the best player on the New York Liberty. I think that's obvious, and I think we saw that when she went down and the Liberty fell apart early in the season after they started the season undefeated. As for the 4 new additions, Alicia Gray, Nneka Ogwumike, Paige Bueckers, Ryan Howard, 6, 7, 8, and 9. What we saw from those 4 players this year, I think, justifies them being in my top 10. Alicia Gray was an MVP candidate up until Alyssa Thomas really went on that triple-double streak and really just kind of asserted her dominance. Alicia Gray is going to be on first team All WNBA. Alicia Gray is in the conversation for being one of the best guards in the WNBA, which is a conversation that Martin and I have had on this show in the past. As for Nneka, the funny thing about this is at the beginning of the year when we did our top 10s, we were reacting to ESPN's top 10 list. And if I'm not mistaken, ESPN had Nneka either in their top 10 or like right outside of their top 10. I think she was like 8th, actually. So she might have been a slot below where I am. And I said on the show, I was like, I'm not sure if at this point in her career, Nneka's definitively a top 10 player. And then she goes out and, in my opinion, has a top 10 season, which I thought was kind of ironic. I've already talked about Paige. I think Paige is 8th. Ryan Howard is an interesting one because Martin and I are both big fans of Ryan Howard. We both wanted to see Ryan Howard be competitive. When we had Dan Thompson on the show last week, Martin had mentioned that he expected or kind of thought that Ryan Howard would benefit the most from Carl Smesko being the new head coach in Atlanta, and actually turned out to be Alicia Gray. And I love what Alicia Gray's done this season. I think Ryan Howard had a pretty strong season as well. Again, she did miss time due to injury, but in the games that she played, I thought she played enough that justified my beliefs previously of her and my views of her as being a top 10 player potentially. And Sabrina drops down to 10 because, again, just like with Jonquel and Brianna Stewart, she was already a top 10 player. She did miss some time, but I still think her season was strong enough to justify her being in my top 10 list. So the players that slipped out then in that case are it was Arike, Kalia Copper, Kelsey Plum, and Jewel Lloyd. But yeah, as it stands today on what is the final night of the WNBA regular season, this is my top 10.
Yeah, and I do want to add how like we always like find it unfortunate that there are players who are top 10 talents at their best. And so we try to do this list based on just this past season, what we just saw, where we are now. That's why we take injuries into consideration. And yeah, like there are names like Kelsey Plum, Satu Sabali, Collier Copper, Arike Agumbawale. There are a handful of names of people who I guess, you could say honorable mention, but like these are players that when they're on and having a great season, they are top 10 talents for sure. Yeah. This is just where we think who we think are the top 10 players are right now, basically like going into the playoffs, essentially based on performance this season.
And the funny thing about you mentioning Satu is I remember when we had Treese on the show, that DJ Treese on the show the second time, and we were talking about the Mercury, and we had all kind of agreed at that point in time that Satu was playing like a top 10 player in the WNBA at that point. She did kind of go into a bit of a slump, but last night, I mean, the first half of that game against the Sparks, she had 17 points in the first half, and again, and showed flashes of being potentially a top 10 player in the WNBA. So it's like
has top 10 talent. So it's
absolutely.
Like that can just pop, that can emerge at any time. So we absolutely acknowledge that.
Skeptical Football Fan says being on a losing team gets you top 10. Paige Bueckers does not build her roster. Paige Bueckers is not responsible for the shortcomings of those around her. She's responsible for herself, and she goes out there and she plays basketball. Paige Bueckers is a first team all WNBA candidate. And in my opinion, that makes her top 10. And I will say this as well, and I know people might not like this, but and we had this conversation on the show, I think Paige is better than Caitlin Clark. And at the end of last season, I put Caitlin Clark in my top 10. Mm-hmm. So for me, and I think that this season, as a rookie for Paige, better than Caitlin Clark's rookie season last year. So losing team or not, just
you say that so definitively, but that's your opinion. You feel like
just my. I don't think it's like a wash. I think it's close. Yeah. But I think Paige was a little bit better this year than Caitlin was last year. Caitlin was great last year. Caitlin was like really, really good last year.
Yeah, and her team went to the playoffs.
Had
a winning record.
Dallas sucks, bro. Like, I don't know. Caitlin last year is not going to the playoffs with this Dallas team. That's not happening.
I don't know, man. I can't say that for sure. That's a different style of play you're talking about. We talked about this in that episode. It's a completely different team.
What?
So, bro, you're telling me that Dallas doesn't have good players? They didn't have DJ.
Dallas has good players.
You actually said that they built a team around Paige.
I did. And then Arike got hurt, and then they blew that team up. What do you mean? Arike was hurt, and they blew that team up.
So if they kept the team they had healthy,
and Arike
that would have been the team.
I think that would have been a playoff team. Yeah, if Arike
doesn't. I mean, they had a team. They did. They have good players.
It was there. I don't know if and you're right. It is a different side of play, so that does factor into it, which is something we've talked about when you compare Paige and Caitlin. Is you do also have to take into account the fact that Paige and Caitlin play different styles of basketball, so the impact is a bit different. But yeah, I would just say just generally. But the general point there is I had Caitlin in my top 10 last year. I think Paige again had one of the greatest rookie seasons ever. She has to be in my top 10 this year. I just feel like her team having 9 wins has nothing to do with what she did individually as a basketball player this year.
Yeah, eye test wise, I think she's a top 10 player. I think anyone who has been watching Paige, she sticks out. She does things all over the basketball court. She carries herself like a top 10 player. She has top 10 talent. So yeah, I don't think her team's losing record has to impact that. Just this is an individual thing, just like even the all WNBA teams. That's just the best individual players. I had told you, and we'll show my list here in a second, but I was struggling with, do I put Paige in the top 5? Because I think she's been that. When Paige comes into your gym now, you're like what she has been doing, what she did to Kelsey Plum in those 2 games, the little jelly layup she's starting to get, like the kind of things that she's doing is like, oh no, she's different. Like she's a different type of basketball player than a lot of those other players out there. She is of the elite talents and skill sets. She has proven that.
Yeah, no, for sure. I will say,
to me, to be a top 5 player, to be top 5, you have to be the type to be able to carry your team like to the playoffs, or, you know, we've had the conversation about like carrying a team before. Like, I honestly, and you know, we'll show my list, but I had to show Jonquel and Stewie respect as well.
Sure.
But I think they're missed time. I think Stewie has kind of taken a little bit of a dip in the time that she has played this season. And the way Alicia Gray, you talk about Jonquel Jones being an MVP candidate early in the season. Alicia Gray's been an MVP candidate all season.
Yeah.
So I found it hard to not put Alicia Gray in my top 5
That's
now.
fair. I will say there is a notable omission. It is Kelsey Mitchell, and it is because I think Kelsey Mitchell played better than Sabrina Ionescu this season.
She played better than Ryan Howard this season.
She played better than Ryan Howard this season as well.
Ryan Howard's been really good.
I had to think about where those players were on my list originally. Kelsey Mitchell was towards the bottom of my top 15. Ryan Howard was like right in the thick of it. And so when I thought about how they played, I was just thinking about, does how they play justify them moving up as far as I'm having them move up? So Kelsey Mitchell is right outside. She's 11. And I did tell Martin this last night. If we were doing this show tomorrow and I had another sleep on it, Kelsey Mitchell would be 10 and not Sabrina Ionescu. Because my original list had Kelsey Mitchell at 10. And then I slept on it. I woke up this morning. I was like, no, I got to put Sabrina at 10. But if I got another sleep and we did this show tomorrow,
you just go right back to
Kelsey, because I could have convinced myself to go right back. That's how good I think Kelsey Mitchell
go to the tape, man. It helps.
It does.
To the tape. Go to the tape. I mean, it helps me.
It does.
That's what I had to do last night. I had to go to the tape.
That does help. But Marlon, let's go ahead and get into your top 10. Do you want to run off your original top 10 first before
I had Asia, Fee, Stewie, Caitlin, Alyssa Thomas, Jonquel Jones, Sabrina at 7, Collier Copper 8, Arike 9, and Kelsey Plum at 10. That was at the beginning of the season in May, or right before the season started. So here's where I'm at now. Top 3 obviously going to be the same. And yeah, like I said, I felt like Alicia Gray had to be in my top 5. I put Kelsey Mitchell in my top 5 right now, because right now I think, and like I said, I almost did Paige. I almost crept Paige into the top 5, but I put Stewie and Jonquel ahead of Paige on mostly respect, but also like their size and their range as players. So like Paige is, you could almost like call Paige a big guard. Like she's long, she's got like good size on her. And she kind of like plays big too. So Paige kind of has that ranginess to her game too, where she's not just like a scorer or just like she's a little bit of everything. But I think just the size and the versatility, like Brianna Stewart, and I put her just outside the top 5, but like Stewie is still the consummate all around Swiss Army knife, take over a game, beat you in different ways type of player. Like just all around, she is still of that mold. I fully still consider her elite. I wouldn't be surprised if she kicks it up in the playoffs. Like again, I think just eye test wise, I feel like she's maybe lost a step, maybe a half a step, you know, just a little bit. Haven't been crazy about her shot making and shooting this season. But I still hold Stewie in that high of regard. So her, and same with Jonquel, just like as a centerpiece of a team, these are two of the biggest. I told you earlier in the season, Jonquel is the biggest matchup advantage in the league, and Stewie is kind of that mold too. So those two, just as like unicorn outliers, I'm like, I'll put them ahead of Paige for now. But I kept Kelsey Mitchell at 5 because I think she became the most unguardable guard this season between her and Paige, which is funny because we started by talking about which one of them is going to be first team all WNBA. I think they were the two most unguardable guards this year. And I would give the edge to Kelsey Mitchell mainly because of that speed. I mean, anyone who talks about Kelsey Mitchell has to talk about that ridiculous speed that she has on her. And she combines it with high level shot making, twitchiness, side to side, start, stop. It's not like out of control. It almost looks like it could be out of control sometimes. She's going so fast, but she's in control. And that it makes it even more impressive. But she can do, I mean, Kelsey Mitchell, she is so dynamic, so electric, maybe the most electrifying player and guard in the league this season. So I wanted to give her that credit as naming her top 5. And then I rounded it out with Sabrina and Nneka. I wanted to throw Ryan in there, but I felt like with her missed time, with Alicia really being the engine behind that team most of the season, I think Ryan's really been coming on as of late the last couple weeks. Like you referenced how I brought up on our last show last week. Nneka had to be in there, bro, because this is her 14th season. Now that the regular season is over, it's official that she has gone 14 straight years shooting over 50% from the field. This season, in 44 games played, 40 of them, she scored double figures. She's 35 years old. She's my age. She's my age. Nneka, and when you watch her, those are just the numbers, and I try to pull some numbers to give us a little more context here, but I actually watch the game, so I can actually share what I actually see. Nneka is still an absolute force out there. It's kind of crazy how the greatness of all these forwards and bigs that we have with Asia, Fee, AT, even Tina Charles didn't really get talked about enough because Connecticut was bad, but like she had a season that was like at her age, it's like, wait, you're still that good? Nneka kind of got the similar kind of treatment. Skylar Diggins had the moment this season after the game where she was like almost brought to tears talking about how Nneka deserves more respect. So Nneka is also the first player in Seattle Storm history to have 40 double-digit scoring games in a season. So that 40 out of 44 double digits scoring, first time a player has done that in franchise history. So if you watch Nneka, she is still, she could still get you 18 and 10. Like she's still, the game against Golden State last night, down the stretch, they're going bucket for bucket. They're running this little curl set for her that it's similar set I see them run for Asia, where she comes out of kind of the mid-range curling into the elbow and she gets it tough bucket. Like she can still just get her shoulder into you, take some bump. She still got the post fades, turnarounds. Like Nneka is she's still like that. So I gave her the edge on top 10 because she's just still that good. I would have loved to put Ryan Howard in there. I think she'd probably be at 11 there for me. But yeah, that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at with the top 10.